Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. I am Josh, and I am a blogger for Caponomics.
I'm Jim.
And today we're going over one of Jim's favorite works and what would that happen to be?
Adrienne Rich, the 21 Love Poems.
You've said a lot about her. When we were talking about what we were going to discuss during the second season, Adrienne Rich is the first one you mentioned,
Yes.
and the one that you most enthusiastically mentioned.
I was like, we have to include her. She's just a phenomenon. For many reasons, one of which I will discuss closer to the end of the episode.
Oh, okay. That's something to look forward to. What do we want to begin with?
Well, first, I think one of the major themes of all that unifies all 21 poems, or all 21 sections of one interconnected poem, depending on how you're choosing to read it, is the tension between silence and the urge to speak.
That is, with regard to the arrangement, I have to agree absolutely, wholeheartedly. It's very much like a bookshelf in the way that they all come together, but you can read them separately and in a different order, and they'll play. They have the same kind of effect.
Exactly. They're very standalone.
Yeah, it's not like I'm gonna read. I would not have to read number 1 first. I could start by reading number 5, and then go back to number 2, then
Right.
16, and it's still gonna, and it makes the same kind of impact, especially specific ones. With regard to her silence, she actually started when the first marriage she had was with the husband,
Yeah, she married
and
a
she
man.
had 2 children.
She had 2 kids, yep.
But then she realized it wasn't working out. Her husband ended up driving into the woods and shooting himself. But she realized that she was a lesbian and that she wanted to marry a woman. Fell for a woman.
She did.
But that's absolutely her right. Which
Now the key is, you get like a few lines scattered throughout this that just do so much to drive this theme of silence home. You have, in the first section, no one has imagined us. We want to live like trees.
I like that imagery of nature, the fact that people just want to be.
Yes,
Kind of,
you want to be on the roadside. We want to be the things people just pass. It's like, oh, that's there. We're like, plus, what do trees do? They're vital. They provide oxygen. We want people to recognize that we're just loving like any other, and love is the ultimate key. It's like, it's what's vital to life, and we are providing that for our own, just as you provide it for your cis heterosexual own.
Beyond that, everybody has something to contribute. There's no such thing as someone who is heterosexual and is a poet, and someone who's homosexual and is a poet. They all have the same depth within their voice. It all comes down to how you view love.
Right.
And I think that the way as long as you are loving, that's all that matters. And with poets, as long as you're writing and keeping that cycle going, that's what matters most.
It's true, and then in 2, I dreamed you were a poem. I say, a poem I wanted to show someone. And I laugh and fall dreaming again of the desire to show you to everyone I love, to move openly together in the pull of gravity, which is not simple. The pull of gravity is what unifies the universe, so it's like she's almost using love as a sort of substitute, or associating love with this gravitational pull between the planets. She's saying love is what's holding the whole fabric of everything together.
My Brit Lit 2 instructor made up a point that the reason that poetry is so important is that it makes us human. And as you are bringing up with that, gravity is what pulls us together, poetry is what defies who we are as people. It's our thought process, our emotion. As much as I was never a big poetry connoisseur for the last so many years, it's begun to grow on me, and those arguments are just so reasonable.
Mm-hmm. And then we have the key stanza. Do you know which section is like the whole key to this?
The whole key to that.
And I've taken massive notes on it.
I highlighted section 20 as being my personal one.
All right, we'll
But
look at.
which one did you choose?
I marked off 7 because what you have here is you have the doubt of her poetic efficacy in the beginning. You have what kind of beast would turn its life into words, you know, like, why would I even speak of what I am? What atonement is this all about? Am I speaking as like a bless me, Father, for I have sinned, I want to confess this to you. And yet, writing words like these, I am also living, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm pronouncing something, but I'm vital in it. I'm still existing as this person that was once vilified. And then there's the whole, is this all close to the Wolverine's howled signals, the modulated cantata of the wild, the Wolverine? You get that allusion to the primal again right after she starts talking about life. And then the cantata is, do you know what a cantata is?
A cantata. That, is that a specific verse?
It's a vocal and instrumental composition where there are choruses, solos, and recitatives. Now, a chorus is when you have many people singing as one. You know, there's one set of lyrics, many voices. A solo is one alone singing to an audience. A recitative is when the singer will adopt the patterns of ordinary speech. So what we have here, if we view this sort of from a coming out lens, from a lens of pronouncement, you have the commonality of the chorus, you know, the many as one, the unified, the solidarity, what we might call queer pride. The solo, you know, the solitary pronouncement, the I am out now for me. And then the recitative is I speak the ordinary speech. I'm just going to speak every day without the affectations of pronouncement. Being queer is going to be part of my daily existence. I'm not going to be like, hey, I'm out to this person, that's how I'm going to interact. I'm not going to walk through the world like standing upright and being like out and proud. I'm just going to walk through the world. Yes, queer is a part of me. It's one part of many.
That is a very reasonable way to look at it. You had mentioned recitative or recitative. Is that another term it's used?
I'm not sure if they're pronounced the same, but I know recitatives. One to mention next is the points of allusions to other texts throughout these poems, especially in Chat 17 when you have the allusion to Tristan Isolde. Have you ever seen that opera? Or
have I seen that? I have. I'm not familiar with that opera.
Alright, what we're basing this on is it's a medieval romance called Tristan, which I have here. Yay! There it is. This little book, Medieval Romances. It's from the Modern Library.
Ooh. That looks fanciful.
Alright, now the basic story of Tristan and Isolde. Isolde is promised to marry King Mark. Right? King Mark. Now, her previous fiance died. Right? It turns out...
Beheaded?
Yeah, it turns out Tristan's King Mark's nephew. He's a knight.
Right.
Tristan killed Isolde's fiance. Right? So, Tristan... Isolde is on Tristan's barge, and she doesn't know it. She's talking to her handmaid, Brungmaid, about how things have panned out for her being engaged to this new guy, this, that, and the other. And she sees a knight mortally wounded on the boat. It turns out it's Tristan in disguise as a stranger named Tantras. Alright, so Isolde, she's magic. she's a witch. So she heals him, but she realizes that Tristan has deceived her. He's Tristan in disguise, the killer of her fiance. So she goes to take his sword, and she goes to stab him. But he doesn't watch the sword. He's too busy staring into her eyes. So she's like, this is so sweet. I think that pierced my heart. I can't go through with this. And she's really, really mad at him. Like, I'm supposed to kill you now. Like, why did you do that? So she's like, get lost. I'll never see you again, but I'll let you live. And he's like, okay, okay. And then it turns out he lied, and he comes back intending to help her marry Mark.
And how the connection with
Wait for it. Wait for it. This is the crux of it. When Isolde realizes that he's betrayed her a second time, she's like, you have to drink an oath of atonement to me. And she makes what she thinks is poison, but it ends up being a love potion.
Oh. It could be looked at in either way. It all depends on the intent of the individual.
Yes, but they fall in love, and it's a tragic love story. Ultimately, they die. But here we have this line, no one's fated or doomed to love anyone. The accidents happen. We're not heroines. Tristan and Isolde is scarcely the story. It's like, this is not our narrative. We didn't force ourselves on anyone. We weren't treacherous. There wasn't any sort of corrupting, like people tended to think of lesbians as tainting the heterosexual woman toward their ways and this, that, and the other. And then there's this whole no poison cup, no penance. We didn't have to, we weren't atoning for anything. We just chose to love one another. Merely a notion that the tape recorder should have caught some ghost of us. That tape recorder not merely played, but should have listened to us and could instruct those after us. This we were. This is how we tried to love, and these are the forces they had ranged against us, and these are the forces we had raged within us and against us and within us. See, there's that whole idea of false representation. These great romances, they didn't capture the lesbian experience. And it was like, we should have a record like that. We should have our Tristan, like, not our Tristan because that's a tragedy and it's about force, but we should be writing our own narrative. People should be recognizing us, being like, their form of love is legitimate.
It was very rare for a work like that to capture the LGBT experience. It would take a while for it to be vaguely hinted, and then someone like Oscar Wilde, he was open about it, but then he was caught under sodomy trial. Sodomy, yeah. But then it would take into the 20th century, people were finally able to touch up on it, which Adrienne Rich did right here, poking at that specific romance. And she was able to turn it to exactly what she was trying to say.
And there's the repetition of the tape recorder when she talks about hearing the G minor Mozart symphony on the tape recorder. It's like, what's the role of a tape recorder? To provide an eternal record of something. But what is that but the perpetuation of more falseness? And here in section 5 we have Claudel vilifying Guide. André Gide was a French decadent and symbolist author who was he was not Christian, and he was very openly homosexual, so a lot of people did not respond to him well. And the ghosts, their hands clasped for centuries, of artists dying in childbirth, wise women charred at the stake, centuries of books unwritten piled behind these shelves, and we still have to stare into the absence of men who would not, women who could not speak to our life, this still unexcavated hole called civilization, this act of translation, this half-world. It's like, we're still unspoken, our truth is still not represented. And then she refers to all the history of the doubt of female authority. You had woman authors, but they would end up burned at the stake, or their books would be hidden,
Oh.
or no one would
Mhm.
publish them.
Mm.
They'd be in diaries in a desk somewhere, or whatever else.
The point that you had made about the voice of women, she touches very much up on that in the fourth stanza, discussing the man's role in society
Right.
for what he was granted, and how she sees them as war-loving, and that you're crying in my arms, and they're still controlling the world. They're still having their voice. Society is still the same way. While people like that are
People
different.
like this hostage who was written to us about someone who's tormenting his genitals, you know, like he's been kept hostage, and what do the guards do? They torture him through his most sensitive part, and what do the genitals do? They bring new life, and they're trying to torment that and suffocate that.
Mm.
See? That's where they aim for. They aim for the site of reproductivity, for where there might be a future, where there was a seed in the hostage, where there was hope. That's what those in power sought to suffocate. That's why the hostage is saying, you know, I think men love wars. They're raging a war on his body, on his agency, on his reproductivity.
It's just a constant cycle of tension but it all comes down to power and control too,
Exactly.
and trying to gain power on every front and control on every front is the objective.
Exactly, you know, and still they control the world and you are not in my arms. It's just so, yeah, so tragic.
The one section that really stuck out to me and I highlighted was number 20.
Let's see.
I like the description about that conversation we were always on the edge of having runs on my head at night. The Hudson trembles in New Jersey light, polluted water yet reflecting even. The way that opens up, it's very from a New Jersey background. It provides such a blunt description.
Yes.
And how, and then it moves into the suffocation and
The stifling, the pressure to be silent again.
But the fact that
And then the whole soon I shall know I was talking to my own soul. She's speaking to her authority there, you know, herself as author. Do I have the right to write my truth? Should I record this? Should I speak openly? And then there's all this pressure to not, and then...
But from what we see here, she fearlessly puts this forth, and we have ourselves something very
yeah, we have a very special poem here.
Was there any final thoughts that you had wanted to say about the poem?
Well, she says it all in the last lines of 21, you know, I choose to walk here and to draw this circle. She revises Stonehenge. She recasts it in the image of herself and her woman-identified nature. She can reshape reality.
Granted, when we say you could read them in any old order, probably number 21 would be ideal to read to the end, because it is her making the final statement, saying that you choose to walk here and make the circle, which I think SpongeBob has made a reference about that with the camping episode. But when somebody chooses to move right here, circle themselves, and just stay, it's an analogy for I'm marking my post, and you're going to have to fight me to get me off.
There's neither Rosenklavierern nor Götterdämmerung, but a woman's voice singing old songs with new words, with a quiet bass, a flute plucked and fingered by women outside the law. You know, the Rosenklavierern is Richard Strauss, the Götterdämmerung is Wagner. The Götterdämmerung refers to the twilight of the gods, the collapse of Valhalla at the hands of again, a misplaced love,
Ooh.
and a lust for the ring of power,
Mhm.
the Rheingold, and a bunch, which has a bunch of attendant symbolic meanings, like the whole, it was owned by a pile of maidens, so it's a symbol of chastity, and this, that, and the other.
Mhm.
Stolen by a man, so corrupted by the lust of men.
This poem has a lot to say. I don't know. Feminist in a feminist voice, it could be viewed in a very powerful light, but with regard to an LGBT voice, it even plays stronger. For the show, you had said that there was something very important that you wanted to say and discuss
I did.
in this particular episode.
I've chosen this episode given that it's an episode that deals very much with courage and with the pressure to confront silence, to confide in you, our darling audience, that I have recently, well not recently, for a long time, acknowledged to myself that though I am not presenting femininely, I am transgender. I've taken the name Lily. Many of my friends refer to me as that. In fact, in an earlier episode, you will hear a friend call me that in passing, and I sort of shrugged it off because I wasn't really ready to be out and about yet, but, you know, it's all a matter of time.
I refer to you as Lily on Facebook as well as you present yourself. And the reason I have you on the show is because you are perhaps the smartest person within the English department at college. I've taken 3 classes with you, American Literature, Shakespeare, and Young Adult Literature, and your energy and your enthusiasm for the fact you come into classes with musical note pieces, and viewing that as art is just somewhat something that I have not seen, and the chemistry among you, Charlie, myself, several other people within the English department, that's the reason why we wanted to create the show. I don't see LGBT as anything that should or should not influence a decision, and I view you as you.
Absolutely.
I see Lily. I see someone who's very enthusiastic about literature, just as I am, and you're a very huge contribution to the show.
I know.
And, it would not be the same without you and without everybody else.
I'm sure we'll get a share of comments confirming that.
And hopefully you're able to take the steps forward to being as happy as you can be, and
I certainly plan to.
moving forward with Erin, or
Yes, she does make me very happy.
Anyhow, if you're interested in reading Adrienne Rich's 21 Love Poems, you can find that within it's in the Norton Anthology Volume E, but you could also pick up a collection of hers.
There's a Norton Critical edition of Adrienne Rich's prose and poetry with an excellent essay at the back by Olga Bromos, which is about the volume the 21 poems is from, which is called The Dream of a Common Language. It's actually my favorite Adrienne Rich book.
Oh, indeed. I'll have to very much dig deeper into her. I didn't read as much Adrienne Rich as you have, but that's just onto its own. Hopefully we're able to work much more together in season 3, which should be up very shortly after we wrap up the season. But be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. Until then, keep reading.